first. As far as attendance, we will note that Councillor Oakley is not with us and Councillor Kyle is online. Everybody else is here. As far as the agenda, does anybody have any questions or additions for the agenda? Councillor Bell.
A question on the in-camera agenda. Could you explain, or could staff explain, why we are going in camera to talk about councillor remuneration? Some of you may have seen a social media post referring to this. I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to the fact that Norfolk and Brantford both have gone through the same process in public session. And I wanted to understand why we would do it in closed session.
Okay. Who can speak to that? Heather, thank you.
We've always gone in camera for the initial discussion about it, to discuss salaries and wages related to council members. The actual report that will have recommendations and decisions to be made will be in open session at policy. But if council would prefer to bring that report into open session this afternoon, I'm also open to that. We've just done it that way because we're allowed based on the personal information, but it doesn't have to be.
Then I would make the recommendation we bring it into open session. I'll look for a
seconder for that. Mayor Bailey. Any questions on that? All in favor of moving that into open session? Opposed? Okay, that is carried, so that will move into open session. I would suggest we'll do it at the end of open session then. Okay, and also noting for attendance, Councillor Chambers is not with us at this point. Anything else anybody wants to add to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve? Councillor Coleman, Mayor Bailey, as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Delegations. We've got a couple delegations this morning. Inspector McTaggart and, Councillor Miller.
I'll declare pecuniary interest on 8-4.
8-4.
You skipped item 3.
I did so. Thank you very much.
The only time I got to declare, you skip it.
8-4. Thank you very much. Any more declaration of pecuniary interest? Okay. Back to our delegations. Inspector and chair of our Brant County OPP detachment. Come on up. I did ask them if they would need more than 10 minutes for the delegation to extend it. They said they did not, but they're looking forward to lots of questions.
Not sure that's exactly what we said, but good morning through you, Chair, and good morning to Council. It's a pleasure to be here. We will very much keep to the 10-minute part here. We know you have a busy agenda today, and we know that you have the report in your packages as well. And to leave that time for questions and discussions is probably the most important thing. So we're here today as part of our mandated responsibilities under the Community Safety and Policing Act that requires us to submit an annual report to the municipality every year. So this is what we're doing, and we've submitted that to you in writing as well in your package. Just want to highlight through the report, as many of you know, I have the pleasure of chairing the County of Brant OPP Detachment Board along with my colleagues, Mayor Bailey, Councillor Pierce, Member Brown, Member Stryker, and Member Boudreau. When we talk about effective police governance, it's our job to ensure that policing is aligned with the community needs, delivered transparently with accountability to the public, informed by our local priorities, and focused on safety, trust, and community safety and well-being. And together with the detachment commander, Inspector McTaggart, the board helps to set these local priorities, provide advice and insight on emerging needs in community safety, receive regular updates on policing activity in the area, and participate in the detachment commander selection process, monitor the performance of the detachment commander, and support collaboration between the OPP and the County of Brant. That in essence is our mandate. Transitioning from the previous act to the Community Safety Policing Act in 2024, as you know, we took a break there to get insurance and whatnot in place, but this is our first full year with those new responsibilities under the CSPA. And with that has brought a tremendous amount of new responsibilities and new workloads, new items that needs to be addressed. But I'm quite proud of the work that our board has done. Through the report on the budget in our annual report to you, I just wanted to highlight a couple of key things that we were able to do, given that was our first full year with the new budget process. We do produce 2 issues of the dispatch newsletter. There are some hard copies available in all the county offices and facilities, and it's available soft copy to all of the residents. This is done twice a year to try and provide really important information to the community about various things, but also some community engagement opportunities. Most notably, though, the one that I know that myself, Councillor Pearson, Mayor Bailey are particularly proud of is that we were able to use that newsletter savings on the postage and with Canada Post and strikes and all these different things that happened. And we were able to reallocate that surplus to the purchase of 2 new e-bikes for use by the detachment as part of our community engagement opportunities. And many of you might have seen them here in Paris already being deployed and being used. They'll be out and about all through the summer, and that's just another way that we can get to build trusting relationships with the community between the OPP and the community members. We also did a number of different community engagement opportunities with various agencies and including Nova Vita, Special Olympics, the OPP Emergency Golf Tournament, which supports the Brant Safe Beds program with Canadian Mental Health, and a number of other activities with our policing partners. We've been focused on strategically enhancing communications both internally and externally, including with yourselves as stakeholders and our community partners and residents. Notably, I also want to highlight that we continue to support a really innovative program here in the county. It's called the Youth Academy, the Brant OPP Youth Academy, which brings in about 20 youth through January and February to go through quite a program to learn about policing in the community and what the opportunities are, whether that's going to be through policing or adjacent careers opportunities. And it's pretty exciting to see that there's a cadet now in the detachment that has been a graduate of the Youth Academy and is now pursuing a career in law enforcement. So that program is paying out dividends. And thanks to the team for doing that. And then, of course, over the course of the year, our board has invested heavily into understanding and education of our community partners and our service agencies. And we've had a number of presentations and delegations to the board to better understand the work that they are doing and how that intersects with the work that the Brant OPP does as well. I'm going pretty fast because I think the most important part of this presentation is what you want to hear from Inspector McTaggart. But it has been a privilege to serve as chair for this past year. And I would like to take an opportunity to thank the hardworking members of the Brant OPP detachment, including the officers, the civilian staff, auxiliary members, and those who continue to serve the community with pride, integrity, professionalism, care, and compassion. The board appreciates the continued support and partnership with the County of Brant staff, and we're so lucky to work with Spencer and Cindy and have the support of other staff members in various departments with graphic design and communication and all those things. So we're very lucky to do that, and we also appreciate the partnership that we have with you as well as council members. I also would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the hard work that the OPP and the County of Brant do in securing additional grants that help pay for different programs, including the RIDE program and a number of other initiatives targeted at community safety. So there is additional funding that comes in. And lastly, not but least, one reminder about our communications protocol that we have with you. And especially as we get into, some times here where we ahead of the election, just a reminder that if you do have constituents calling you for various issues within the community, please ensure that they do call the 1-800 number if it's not an emergency. Obviously, if it's an emergency, we want them to call 911. But we do need that 1-800 number, the constituents to call into that so that it is reported to police and that there is a police service for that. If they don't call it in, we don't know about it. And so that's really important that they do call that in. And that 1-800 number is on the dispatch and certainly can give it to you right now. If you'd like it handy, it's 1-888-310-1122. And that's the non-emergency OPP line. That helps us better understand the priorities of the community as well when it gets captured. And with that, I'm going to introduce and welcome Inspector McTaggart to provide a little bit of an overview on his report.
Thank you, Board Chair Haley. Good morning, everyone. I'll provide a quick update regarding the 2025 Detachment Board Report. So 2025 Annual Report marks the completion of the 2023 the 2025 Detachment Action Plan and demonstrates a positive progress across crime reduction, traffic safety, community well-being priorities. Overall, Brant County OPP continued to deliver evidence-informed policing while responding to significant service demands and strengthening partnerships with community stakeholders. So a few highlights I want to bring to your attention. Crime reduction. We saw a reduction of 21% in violent crime from 2024 to 2025, from 242 incidents to 191. Assaults declined from 112 to 94. Sexual assaults decreased from 36 to 28. Failed to comply with court orders declined from 100 to 81. And break-in enters continue on a 3-year downward trend, decreasing from 104 in 2023 to 67 in 2025. Property crime and fraud. This is the one area we're seeing a bit of a trend upwards. In 2025, we saw 679 occurrences from 656 the year before. And then fraud remains one of the most common offenses with 179 reported incidents in 2025. This has prompted us to continue with public education, fraud prevention presentations, and enhance investigative capacity. So anyone who's attended our community safety nights, we've had 2 of them in 2025, we brought in subject matter experts to deal with frauds and definitely inform the public on what you can do to prevent from being a victim of a fraud. I am proud to say, though, over the last 3 months of 2026, including the most recent report I'll be giving to the board next week, we are seeing a downward trend in property crime. So that's a positive on our end as well. Traffic safety. So traffic enforcement is our priority, and the big 4 obviously was speeding, impaired driving, distracted driving, and seatbelt compliance. Officers laid 4,691 highway traffic offenses and 205 criminal code traffic offenses in 2025. We had 128 impaired driving charges, reflected a continued proactive enforcement. And importantly here is, of those 128 driving offenses, none of them were related to a traffic fatality. Community well-being. The detachment responded to 22,839 calls to service, including 6,413 incidents requiring immediate police response. We continued collaboration with our healthcare and social partners to help divert non-criminal calls to more appropriate resources. Of note, in 2025, I am proud to say that we established an MOU with the Brantford General Hospital between us, Brantford Police, and Six Nations to develop a transfer of care protocol that allowed us to reduce the number of hours we are spending in the emergency room with people in crisis. I report on that month by month to the board, and I'm proud to say in 2026, when I compare where we are now versus where we were last year, we are seeing a significant decrease month over month. So that's a positive for this MOU, and it's actually working through the training and education between us and our partners at the hospital. Victim services and community engagement. A total of 878 victim service referrals were offered in 2025, which was an improvement over 21%. And our community engagement remained a priority through school visits, senior outreach, public events, culture initiatives, and ongoing communication through social media and community forums. So looking ahead, the detachment will transition to a new 2026 to 2029 Detachment Action Plan, the first developed under the Community Safety and Policing Act. Plans being informed through engagement with the Detachment Board and community stakeholders to ensure policing priorities remain aligned with our local needs. Overall, Brant County OPP achieved notable reductions in violent crime, break-in-enters, youth-related charges, and judicial non-compliance offenses, while maintaining strong traffic enforcement, strengthening our community partnerships, and enhancing supports for victims and vulnerable persons. That's my report.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions from committee? Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the Inspector and to Jennifer. Thank you for all you do. I'm pleased to see that we have a reduction overall in the crime statistics, which, being an optimist, I see that as very positive, and actually runs a little counter to some of the commentary you might find on social media that would indicate that somehow or other the county is becoming less safe. Would you like to comment on that?
Thank you, Councillor Bell. I can assure you and council as well as the residents of Brant County that is not the case. Individuals have perceptions of which they sometimes are misinformed. But as you can see from our report, that is not the case here in Brant County. We're doing our very best, and we're seeing those positive outcomes in those areas of crime that impact us most as residents of the county.
Thank you. One more question, if I may, Mr. Chair. And I think I asked the question to you last year, Inspector. On page 36, you talk about the number of frontline hours, which have come down 15% since 2023. At the same time, our population has increased by 5%. So on a per capita basis, that's a 20% reduction. I'm sure there's something behind those statistics.
Absolutely. So although you may see a reduction in those traditional frontline hours, I can assure you that's not the case. Our current service delivery model provides us opportunities to capture what we're doing more effectively so that those frontline hours that you traditionally have seen are now being captured a different way. So I know through the board, and I've had regular communications with Board Chair Haley and the members of the detachment board on this, because they're very much alive to that as well. And I can assure you through my presentation on the service delivery and how that model works, that the reduction in hours you're seeing are not a reduction in patrol hours of people on the road. It's just being captured a different way.
We know Councillor Miller, then Councillor House, then Councillor Haley.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of rambling questions through you to it's inspector, correct? Not acting? You're not acting today?
That's correct. It's confirmed.
Okay, congratulations. And I do hope you stick around a little longer than the average of the previous 5 or 6 inspectors. I wanted to ask you, because you did kind of highlight it in your report, the prevention part of policing. I think about policing reactive, proactive. And policing by its nature, there's got to be a lot of reactive. You know, the call comes in, you go and you deal with it. But at the same time, there's a huge proactive component to it. And you talked about the crime prevention, and you felt, and to me, that's a bit of that's proactive, and you felt it was very successful. And it is in the stats. So I wanted to ask, any thoughts on what types of crime might be growing in our area? And if I peruse the news, you know, there's guns, gang activity, drug trafficking, organized crime groups, human smuggling, fraud, which you talked about, and I don't believe a lot of the fraud is being reported. But of all the crimes, do you see any that are going to be increasing in our area, and how is the OPP preparing for that? How are you being proactive on that front?
So to your answer, Councilor Miller, you had a few questions there, but I think the overall
Just one.
overall piece there was the what are we seeing trending here in Brant County, and I alluded to that through property crime and frauds. Those are the 2 offenses that we're traditionally seeing an increase on, and that's reported in my report as well. But I am pleased to say that over the last 3 months, we are seeing a decrease in property crime and frauds through our proactive efforts at detachment. And I think that goes a long way to those our members at the detachment through our community street crimes unit. Specifically, they deal with the drugs and property crime, the theft of motor vehicles, and then the frauds as well. So having those community safety nights that we presented last year, and we will continue this year as well, and through those senior educations that our media officers is attending as well as our auxiliary unit. I think those pieces, that intimate one-on-one with the community, and having those conversations with people that maybe don't have access to social media or would prefer that in-person education, I think is key to lending us and trending in the right direction. Because as you're probably aware, a lot of our senior population are becoming victims of fraud. And if we can inform them and provide them the skills and the tools to allow them to make the right decisions based on what they're presented, that will go a long way to curbing this as well.
Thank you for that answer. And then the second question, not quite as rambling, but ATVs. Now, in the report, and Jennifer talked about 2 e-bikes were put into use. Those e-bikes, those aren't ATVs, or 4 ATVs, I assume. but you could correct me on that. And then as far as ATVs go, in the grand scheme of seriousness of crimes, it's not high up there, but it's a complaint all across the county, all across the province, probably everywhere in the world. Any progress on that front?
So regarding our e-bikes, they're a pedal-assisted bike, so that it requires the member to ride the bike like anybody else, except it has the luxury of a battery to help assist in the effort required to push that bike up the hills in some of the streets here in Paris. So yeah, so they're not a scooter per se, electric. They're actually, you have to actually pedal them. In regards to ATVs, well alive to this scenario, and we have scheduled ATV patrols. Specifically, we have targeted Scotland as one of the prime areas that we're seeing some of these complaints coming from. And I can assure you that we have identified those individuals down in Scotland that have been causing a little bit of the some of the conversation that's being had here as well. But just be mindful as well, this is a bylaw through the county, right? So this is a heavy police resourced tool for something that's a bylaw issue within the county itself. So we feel we've done our piece through education and contact. It's up to the county if they continue to have that bylaw in place to push that forward.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much.
Counselor House.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you for the report. Thank you both for the information. It's always helpful. My question is going to be similar to Councillor Bell's, only it's going to zero in on the speeding side of things. And I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit more on just on your observations. Like, it's a significant reduction in speeding offenses from the previous year to last year, and which is great news. But I know that many of us are still hearing from a lot of people that say there's a lot of speeding going on, and I'm interested in your observations overall. But I'm also interested. We were a couple of years ago. We had a couple of dedicated Highway Traffic Act officers. I wonder where the status of that is, and specific to last year when we had photo radar in a couple of locations. I'm particularly surprised that the number of offenses went down, and I'm wondering if you could just discuss all of that specific to speeding. Thank you.
Councillor House, I'll do my best to answer your questions there. Regarding speed enforcement, that is always a contentious issue in any municipality you go to. Specifically to some of it is perception based. We partner very heavily with Brand Safe Streets, and they do a fantastic job of collecting those analytics. So for instance, and I know Greg was here earlier, passing out some of those cards that will take you right to the Brand Safe Streets website. I can't highlight that enough because they do some of the legwork for us. If you have an individual in a specific ward that is saying speeding is an issue on their roadway, Brand Safe Streets is definitely the person to reach out to, or the agency to reach out to help set up some sort of analytics. And they have devices available that can track those speed of vehicles through a duration of time. And then if there is an identified issue, they come to us, and then we set up what's called a focus patrol in those areas. And then we target those areas based on that time of day. Because you can imagine putting a uniformed officer in one location for an entire day is a complete waste of time. And so as technology advances, as do we, and where can we be the most effective? So we do have a traffic management unit that you alluded to as well, that is enhancement through the county, and those two individuals focus on traffic enforcement. So their roles are basically to enforce the Highway Traffic Act here in the county of Brant, and year over year we select 2 new people to go into that role, and those people that are selected through a process that looks at their commitment to traffic safety. So those individuals that we do put in place are highly motivated individuals that sometimes make their mark on several individuals in the county, but rightfully so. They're there to do a specific purpose. So have I answered all your questions, sir?
Through the chair, almost. The remaining part was your observations related to photo radar, and I would have thought that last year, because we had photo radar last year, I would have predicted a higher rate of offenses. Or I'm wondering, maybe did the photo radar not fall into these statistics, or just overall your observations? Thank
The
you.
automated speed enforcement you're referring to was operated by the county. So bylaw managed that system. And so those numbers that they had through that device were not captured through our enforcement. That's completely separate from those stats that you're seeing from us. The county collected those, and that will be their stats to share if they had any on that. I know the automated speed enforcement was a very contentious issue in the province of Ontario, and our premier decided to discontinue that program to his own reasons behind that. And like I said, we support that and whatever that looks like. So to your point, the speed enforcement you saw here, specifically in town of Paris and elsewhere, those stats were the county's, and we have no information to share on that.
Councillor Haley.
Yes, through you, thank you. We all are probably getting lots of calls about speed, and I'm referring them to the Brand Safe Streets, but I'm just wondering if you could help me about the processing time. So I write in, I put my submission in, and then how long will it take before I get an answer? And I have other questions too.
That's a good question. Unfortunately, I don't manage that portion of what Brand Safe Streets, and when it comes to timing from their end, I know they're very efficient when they review the complaints or the concerns daily, and then they action those complaints as quickly as they can. So I unfortunately can't share the timing aspect of it, but I know it does take some time to, first of all, receive, read them, action them, set up the device to record the speeds of vehicles on that specific location, and then they bring the device back, download the information, and then share with us if there's a complaint. And we have bi-weekly meetings with Brand Safe Streets, so that these are topic conversations every 2 weeks. So it's very current and accurate as to what is happening in a very timely manner.
And just recently, there's been these signs put in the middle of the road. Jerseyville Road has them, Linden Road, I believe, has them, and Mount Pleasant, those signs were stolen, but I find them very effective. They're new, and I find them very effective. I've got one other question. It's about trails and e-bikes, and some of the e-bikes are really like motorcycles. And is there any regulation there, because they're quiet and they're fast? And I think, I feel they're very dangerous on the trail when they're so fast and quiet.
So there is a bylaw for scooters in the county, and that's something that bylaw will be able to speak to on that. And regarding to pedal-assisted bicycles, they do fall under Highway Traffic Act as well. And if the county, I'm not sure whether the pedal-assisted bicycles, the e-bikes that you're referring to, fall under the bylaw. I'd have to double check on that one. But I know to your point, you are correct. Some of those bikes go upwards of 40 kilometers an hour. And if you're a pedestrian walking on that trail and that bike's coming behind you, it's approaching very quickly, right? So that's a concern that we have. And now that we do have those pedal-assisted bikes based as a result of the board graciously providing those to us, we have been out on our trails here in Paris, as well as encouraging our members to post their actions on social media so that everybody out there is aware we're there, this is what we're doing, and we are logging those hours so that I share those with a monthly report with our board. So
Thank you. Just another special concern, certain trails, like the trail near us, allows horses too. So you get the very fast bikes and then pedestrians and then the horses, and it's a bad mix.
And that's a balance, absolutely. And our members that are on the bikes are mindful of everybody using those trails. And if there's a dangerous action, they will definitely take necessary action to address that as well. And I know Councillor House just left here, but Chair Haley did mention something to me regarding traffic enforcement. So most people think of traffic enforcement as speeding, which is a ticket at the side of the road, ticket or a warning, whatever that looks like. There's also more to it than that, and there's a lot of offenses under what we call a Part 3 category that requires a summons to court. So our traffic management unit while they are doing those speeding tickets, those Part 1 tickets that are a fine at the roadside, then they move on. They're also doing Part 3 offenses, careless driving, and those other offenses that do not have a payout per se, and they require a court appearance. So with those offenses also comes time. And while members can write a speeding ticket very quickly, the impact of a Part 3 offense when you're sending someone to court and having them appear in front of a justice of the peace to deal with a minimum fine of $500 or more, whereas a roadside speeding ticket is up to $500, right? It's usually less than that. That is where the impact really we are seeing with the public is through those Part 3 offenses. I'm encouraging my members to the traffic management unit to be mindful that a speeding ticket has a duration, I think about 3 months before a person becomes non-compliant again and they forget about it and it's now in the rearview mirror. Or a Part 3 offense, that takes it up to 3 months potentially to get through the court process. So they're constantly reminded of what they've done over and over again as they're having to attend in court and then dealing with a fine of $500 or more. So I feel those offenses in itself are also very worthwhile and speak to the efforts of our traffic management unit as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Carl, I do see you there, but just give me half a second. I don't mean to put you on the spot there, Mr. Bergeron, but I do see you on the screen. I'm wondering if you wanted to discuss or state anything as regards to bylaws for the e-bikes, scooters, et cetera. It was just discussed. Okay, I appreciate that extra, and again, sorry to put you on the spot like that. We're gonna go Councillor Kyle and then Councillor Chambers.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, through you to our presenters. Like my other colleagues, thank you for the report. It was great. One quick question for you. You mentioned the program that's in the schools, and I know there was a period of time a couple of years ago where we weren't allowed to be in the schools, or the police programs weren't allowed to be in the schools, and now they're back. So just wondering what the reception has been from the local schools to that program.
Thank you, Councillor Kyle. I can tell you right now, our school resource officer, PC Vitalis, has always had an open invitation at the Grand Area District School Board, and his engagement with the students is invaluable, in my opinion. Month over month, he provides a report to me, which I share with the board as well, on those activities and those programs that he's delivering in the school. And again, it's overwhelmingly successful from a relationship building piece from the school itself, as well as the impact we're seeing from Constable Vitalis. So typically what I'm referring to here is he's able to mitigate some of those youth-related matters that potentially could end up in the criminal justice system. And he's able to take that off firsthand and deal with that individual one-on-one. Whereas if we didn't have that person in the school system, it would likely end up before the courts. And that's not where I want to see our youth going towards. I want to see us be able to educate and correct those behaviors as quickly as we can. Obviously knowing that, mindful of what is the allegation is, but for the most part, what we're seeing in the schools is having extreme payoffs from our end when it comes to youth engagement and support.
Thank you. Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I just want to apologize for showing up late. I got off to a late start, and the last thing I wanted to do was get a speeding ticket on the way here to hear Inspector McTaggart. So, and I didn't. I kept it within the speed limit. That's why I was a little late. A couple questions, and again, going back to what Councillor Miller and Councillor Haley suggested or asked about ATVs, and we know this issue was brought up last year at the annual report, et cetera, and I know in the village of Scotland has been a problem. And I have spoken with some of the people there, and their problems aren't so much as the police presence and response, it's the consequences of what happens after you catch one of these ATVs off-road or on where they shouldn't be. And it just seems to go away and then come back the next week kind of thing. So could you just maybe elaborate a little bit on the consequences of what happens when you do have a situation where you can identify and know where and when the ATVs are doing what they do?
So when it comes to ATV offenses, like anything else, officer has discretion. I'm not one to push an officer to be heavy-handed in situations that doesn't dictate that as well. So I think in the majority of these cases, specifically what you're referring to, we're talking about young people here, right? So we want to build those relationships. We want to educate. And we also want to be able to come up with some sort of an agreement, I'll call it, where you can ride an off-road vehicle on your own property. That's not a problem at all. It's when you leave the property that everything else now applies. So moving forward, we've made a lot of headway, specifically in the Village of Scotland, with those complaints that you're referring to, through our active patrols, through identifying those individuals that have been topic of conversations, and have made contact with both those individuals as well as their parents, letting them know what the rules and of the county are regarding those off-road vehicles. And like Greg Bergeron said, while the bylaw officers don't have any enforcement power to stop, we do, and our members have done that. Moving forward on this, there comes a point where is the messaging received and is it going to be abided by? So occasionally, we potentially may have to send an individual through the court system on this. And anyone under 16 years of age has to be, between 12 and 16, has to be summoned to court because they can't be issued a Part 1 offense notice that I referred to earlier. They have to actually attend court. So again, this is a relationship building piece, try to understand what the issue is at hand down there and try to deal with a way that we're not forcing this through the court system. And if there's another avenue for us to address this, and that's currently where we're at with that.
And thank you for that. And just, if I could just continue with a couple more issues that tend to happen in the rural areas, and it has happened in the past, and there's a recent example. I don't want to get into specifics. I'm trying to keep it general. And that is what is commonly called a bush party or a bush gathering or a bush bash or something like that, where a lot of people from perhaps outside the county or even within the county show up at certain locations en masse. And you can have a couple hundred and maybe 1,000 people show up where they maybe shouldn't be, and it causes problems, obviously. And this can happen on private property. It can happen in our parks. A good example of a park where it could happen, and I hope it never does, is the Art Cabin Lions Park in Burford. It's secluded, it's off the beaten track, and just such a beautiful place, and you don't want to have big parties there. Scotland Optimist Park, I believe, has had experiences in this in the past, and maybe recently. So I'm just wondering what people should do if these things are not where they're supposed to be, are getting out of hand, are causing problems in the community.
Call the police. And that's a communication protocol we've talked about here, is if a constituent's coming to you after the fact, it kind of ties our hands as to what we can do. But if you can reinforce with all your constituents in your respective wards that if they see something, call us. You're not bothering us. You're not, we will deal with this. We have a priority call ahead of that. We will deal with it as fast as we can and get down to those calls as they come in. Because to your point, those large gatherings can get out of hand very quickly. And all of a sudden now you've got mass individuals at one location that are in different states of potentially alcohol, drinking alcohol and whatever else. That the best case to that is if there's a gathering that does not look like it's legit, to call the police. That's the best I can say. Call us each and every time. You're not bothering us at all.
And in regards to that, and I know Greg Bergeron is here, I don't want to have him interrupt your presentation, but he may want to respond to that at the appropriate time as well, in terms of what our bylaws are, et cetera, for that in our parks, et cetera. The other question I have is with regard to visibility in the rural areas as well as in the subdivisions within the more urban areas. Obviously, we don't have a lot of officers. They can't be everywhere at the same time. And most people have in their mind that they're nowhere at any time because they don't get seen that much. And that's simply a matter of geography and number of people that we have to be in places where they obviously can't be everywhere at the same time. I don't know how many people have responded to me as we never see the police. And I live in the rural area, and every once in a while, when you do see a police car go by, you wonder what's going on. So I'm just wondering if you could maybe comment on what the police do in terms of trying to cover so much ground in terms of visibility, just to reassure the people that the police are there.
I can assure you we are there. As you can imagine, there's probably certain times of the day where someone's either at work or maybe at night when they're sleeping. Those times might be the time the officer patrols that area and they're not seen. It's like the old saying, a tree falls in the forest doesn't make a noise, right? If no one's there to hear it, right? So same thing with policing is, and we get this complaint a lot, don't get you wrong, that you're not alone in that, is that the individuals are not seeing the police. I can tell you the county is divided up into zones, and we have a member for each zone every day. So, or two, depending on the size. So the members are there. They are making those patrols. Unfortunately, they may not be seen by those individuals when they are making those patrols, but I can assure you we are present, and the members that are in our respective zones take their responsibility seriously.
And I'm going to finish just with a couple of suggestions, if I might, Mr. Chairman. The first suggestion is it's great to have this kind of report, and you can see there's lots of questions. I would like to see more than an annual report. I would like to see from time to time presentations, even semi or quarterly presentations, because I think it keeps the council informed, and we can inform our constituents that we have regular contact with the police. So that's just a suggestion. And the other suggestion is when the guys are out on patrol, or I should say the officers are out on patrol, used to be a time back in the day when a police car would drive in a farmer's driveway, just have a conversation. And that worked wonders. It reinforces the fact that the police are there, makes the neighbors kind of wonder what's going on, but you learn a lot by talking to people in their driveways and over the fences and on the sidewalks, et cetera. So just a couple of suggestions, and thank you very much for making the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. And we will move on to 4.2, which is Emery. Is Emery here? If you want to come on up. If we could just get you to state your name and address for the clerk, and you have 10 minutes for your presentation. Thank you. Is that?
Louder? Oh, thank you. Emery Silva, and my address, home address,
Please.
43 William Street, Paris. Good morning, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. My name is Emery Silva. I am the owner of Bird and Bee Vintage, as well as Le Petit Marché in downtown Paris. Le Petit Marché is the name of our building. In English, it means the little market, and it's home to 3 businesses, including my own and many local consigners. I have a staff of 5 of the most incredible and creative people, and I would not be standing here today or have a business at all without them. I'm here today to speak about the impact that the major infrastructure reconstruction in our downtown core has had on my business over the past 2 years. I understand that infrastructure improvements are necessary, and I recognize that construction is something unavoidable. But the reality for businesses operating through this prolonged disruption has been extremely difficult. For the 10 years leading up to the start of the Big Dig, my company consistently matched or improved upon its yearly income. Over that decade, we evolved creatively and built a stable and successful business year after year. We maintained and grew our revenue. That changed when construction began. Last year alone, during the construction months, my business lost approximately $74,000. This year, we are on track to experience the same loss or a similar loss. I have circulated a document that's showing a graph of our sales for the full year of 2024, 2025, and 2026 to date. I wanted you to see the actual numbers during the months affected by construction. We are experiencing approximately 40 to 50% drop in sales. In black and white, this is what my business is actually experiencing. The reason I'm willing to share my business's personal finances with you today is because I know there are many other business owners who aren't standing here today and aren't talking about how difficult these past 2 years have been for them. Most business owners would not feel comfortable sharing their finances publicly, and that's very understandable. But someone has to stand up and show what is actually happening. Someone has to put real numbers to the experience that so many businesses are living through. So I'm willing to do that today. These are not simply numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent the cumulative impact of reduced traffic, disrupted access, construction fatigue, and ongoing uncertainty that businesses have had to absorb for an extended period of time. I also want to put these losses into perspective by sharing what happened during the pandemic. Over a 2-year period during COVID, my business was forced to close for a total of 9 months. Despite being closed for nearly half of those that 2-year period, we actually experienced record sales during those years. Why? Because when people couldn't travel, they came to Paris. Our town benefited from an incredible increase in tourism as people looked for places that they could visit closer to home. And when we were allowed to open, we saw tremendous gains. We were able to make up for the losses we experienced during the closures because people were here, they were visiting, and they were supporting local businesses. That taught me something very important about short periods of relief, that they can make a difference to a business. And that's what our downtown needs now. Now, prolonged construction has affected our town's once booming tourism industry. When our downtown is difficult to access, navigate, or enjoy, it affects the experience of visitors and can discourage people from coming and returning. Paris has always been known as one of the prettiest little towns in Canada, and certainly one of the prettiest in Ontario. But the beauty of Paris has never been just about how the streets look. It's about our character. Over the past 2 years, I believe we have lost some of that image. The big dig branding and Dust Bowl atmosphere have overshadowed our identity as a town. At a previous council meeting, it was suggested that a pause in construction next year is being considered. I'm here today to say I, along with many other businesses, strongly support that pause. I understand that some people are on the fence and aren't sure whether a pause is the right decision. Some want to just get it over with. I've heard that a lot. But new projects popping up constantly, when will it be over? I believe a pause can benefit everyone. It gives businesses a chance to recover, it gives our community a chance to breathe, and it gives our tourism industry a chance to regain some momentum. It allows for strategic planning. We all know that when the project is finished, Paris will be beautiful again. We will have wider sidewalks and new lampposts. But beauty is more than how people or places look. The soul of the town is created by the people who live and work here. The businesses that take risks, the entrepreneurs who bring their ideas to life. And when you take away the soul of a place, you can't buy it back once it's gone. Small businesses and entrepreneurship are a part of what gives this town its soul. They are part of what makes Paris special. They are also part of what we risk losing. I want to give you an example. Recently, my staff took on a project we called the Mechanic Street Glow Up. We repainted 4 storefronts that hadn't been updated in more than 30 years. You might have seen them. They're the 4 colors along Mechanic in a black and white striped awning. We did this because honestly, we were at a loss as to what else we could do to survive this construction. We've done everything we can within our business. We've created a beautiful space, we've created a place for community events, and we've tried to make our business a destination. You might have seen our trellis, our Paris trellis. Lots of people take photos. So we decided to put our energy into helping our fellow businesses and brighten up our community. That's what small businesses do. We don't just invest money, we invest our time, our creativity, our relationships, and our hearts into the community where we live and work. As a small business owner, I will continue to do whatever I can to ensure my business survives. We will continue to adapt and find ways to make things work, but there's only so much a business can do when it's fighting against forces it can't control. Without revenue, without meaningful stimulus, without help from the county, we will not only struggle to recover the losses we've already taken, we will eventually reach the point where there's simply nothing left to salvage. I want to be completely honest with you today. I don't know if my business will survive this construction. I don't even know if my business will survive with a pause. But I know without one, we are very likely not to. And how many other businesses will we lose? I know of 4 closures so far from last year. Last year, I had to sell my house to recoup some of the losses our business had taken. I went into this year's construction believing that it would be enough of a cushion to get me through. I wasn't counting on taking the same kind of hit this year. And I don't think any of the businesses downtown were either. At some point, you can only absorb so much loss. You can only cut so many costs and ask so much of the people around you before there's simply nothing left. That's why I'm standing here today. I'm not asking for a pause because construction is inconvenient. I'm asking for a pause because businesses need an opportunity to recover before they are pushed to the point past recovery. We support the long-term goal of improving our downtown, but we also need to ensure that the businesses that make up the heart of our downtown are still here to benefit from that future. I respectfully ask for you to move forward with a pause in construction next year. Give our businesses a chance to recover, give our community a chance to breathe, because when this project is finished, the beauty of our town won't come from wider sidewalks or lampposts. It will come from the people who fill those sidewalks and storefronts. It will come from the unique character and soul that has made Paris a destination in the first place. Please consider a pause in the construction for next year. Please take a pause and imagine a future we all get to share. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for listening and for considering the very real impact this prolonged construction has had on our downtown community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Before I get to committee, I think General Manager of Operations, Dave, would like to add a little context to the pause.
Excuse me. So through the chair to Emery, we are planning on taking a pause next year. We're still working through what exactly a pause looks like, in a sense of we're doing an additional year of planning. There may be some investigation works that we want to do so that we can move faster in future years. So there'll be more information on that to come in late August, early September, exactly what, you know, the year in 2028 and 2029 look like in our plans, and you know, certainly recognize the impact this has had on people like yourself, so.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear it, and I just, regardless of whether there is or isn't a pause, I really felt like it was important to speak to the impact. I know my business might be one of the greater impacted businesses, and certainly all the businesses haven't been impacted equally. Businesses with clients, services aren't going to experience the same types of losses that retailers are. But retailers and more represent the tourism side of the draw for Paris, so we don't want to lose and create those like homogenized generic brand stores. We want to see those, like the little guys and the people from here survive. So thank you.
Thanks for that, Dave. Committee, Mr. Mayor, you had something, and then
Yeah.
Councilor Miller.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for what you've done on your street.
Thank you.
I won't be here for the pause, but I'm sure that staff will do the right thing with the new elected council. You deserve a pause. But your store is a very special store to the downtown of Paris. It's you've put a lot of yourself into it. And what you've done for your neighbors when you didn't have to do a thing, just to keep yourselves busy and to make the whole street look more current and full of life. Thank you for doing that. And I think I can thank you on behalf of council. It was a very nice thing for you to do. So thank you. And I'm hoping that you'll still be here.
We do.
When I'm not. And I think it's going to be very, very easy for you to take on a partner if you need one. So in the future, if you need to speak to any of us, please call us.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Councilor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, really impressive presentation, heartfelt. I wanted to ask, you said you know 4 businesses that have closed. Were they all retailers?
No. And I believe maybe 2 of them could have been like retirement circumstances. There was a salon that closed and a jeweler. which so it's, debatable whether the timing of it matters. I mean, businesses do close every year. But one of them was a food a restaurant, and one of them was, like me, a retailer. So it was jeweler, salon, food, and retail, art.
Okay, thank you.
I have the names of the businesses if that's, well, I don't have the names, but yeah.
Thank you. Counselor House.
Thanks, and through the chair to Emery. Emery, thank you for coming in. You and I have had a few conversations in recent weeks. It was brave of you to share your information. It's very real, like that. You brought in real information, and that's something we don't always see. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate also as the mayor said, the effort that you and others have put into, like I remember last year you helped make that big selfie frame.
Oh, the frame, yeah.
You know, have your
A
picture.
moment, a snapshot in time.
Yeah, and so you're always doing things like that, and the Paris on the side of your building, and all of that, and that all helps, and we're appreciative of that. I'm encouraged to hear Dave talk about a pause next year. I think it's worth emphasizing that parts of downtown will be under construction for years. I don't want to sugarcoat that in any way. But a pause on the big parts, the Mechanic Street part, I support that. As the mayor said, I support that 100%. I'm gonna put Dave on the spot one more time. Well, brace yourself, Dave. Dave, can you give us an update on when vehicles will be able to drive up this road, the main road?
So we're still assessing that through the chair. We're targeting early fall for that to occur right now. So we don't have a window of, plus minus 3 weeks that we're confident in sharing at this moment, but early fall is what we're targeting.
Okay, thank you. And then for you, Emery, I want to continue to have ongoing conversations with you because my wife and I were down here Friday night. We ran into the mayor and Jim Friday night, and the promenade is a good idea, and the daytime festivals, the weekend festivals. I think I talked to you after this last festival. Business was better when there were lots of people down for the festival that was being held in the promenade. I think there's still a bit of a mystery to solve when the parking lots are full but the stores are empty or closed.
Yeah.
That's something that and I'm the council representative on the BIA. That's something we need to continue to work forward to kind of try and figure that out. But
Yeah, it doesn't always correlate to sales. And we do have a big population in a very small town. Like our downtown is 1 block. So, I mean, I don't know many towns that have a 1 block downtown that are also like embedded between 2 rivers where, you can't have more parking unless you go up.
right.
Which is what's kind of on the table. So I think part of that is that we don't have enough parking and that we took away Grand River Street. That's why the parking lots are full. I'm lucky I have my own parking spaces for my staff, but oftentimes we have 3 cars per day. Again, that's just working the store. So that's not all the people and their families that need to come down. And I think people aren't walking down right now. I think in general, locals are really staying away from downtown. So the people that are coming are discovering Paris for the first time. And so they're here and they're staying. But I don't think we're getting the return customers that we used to get. I think just the drawn outness of the project has, like I said, it's just not damaged, but it's just put a damper on our identity. People still come here, but it's getting, the longer it goes in the state that it's in. I think people just, they're not staying as long, you know. It's just not the same. Like, yeah, I don't
Okay.
know. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for, because you have great insight to the reality of what's going on downtown from a business perspective.
And I do get a lot of customers. Like, we still have like people, and of course economically, like, it's a difficult time. Like, you can actually, if you look at that chart, you can actually see that from January 2024 to January 2025, which is not affected by construction, you can see a pretty significant drop there too. And that is the economy. Like, early 2024, I think things were really rough, and they're not so much greater now. So in general, like, it's a difficult time to be going through this project.
Yeah.
And I think that's exacerbating the situation. So it's not like it's all the construction's fault, but I think the prolongedness of the construction is starting to have a really exponential effect on just what's happening in the community. And so that's why I thought, if there's a chance of a pause, let's reset for a second, like, take the time for additional planning, because we already know that this year the Grand River Street project is not as was planned, right? So things have been changing that we weren't able to make adjustments for. I mean, most people wouldn't have sold their house, like, and I certainly thought that was enough. So it's really incredible that it wasn't, and I'm still struggling. So that's just to speak to that there's a lot of factors, but it's a really, like, we need a break.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Emery. And I think when you said construction fatigue, I
Yeah.
think that says it all. But I'll allow others to ask you questions. Thank you.
Counselor Haley.
Through you, thank you, Emery, for sharing. I think you're very brave to share your books. And I know there's people on William Street, the thrift store there, and people who are probably afraid to share their books that are saying the same thing as you. So I feel very badly that you had to sell your home. I'm just saying I feel for you, and I thank you. You're very brave to even tell us your story. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to speak to that, I really tried not to bring it up because it's very much a pity me kind of situation, and obviously I don't invite that. I'm doing very well. I found a new little home and I'm happy. The point is that I love Paris, and I really, just to speak to, like, I love what I'm doing in Paris, and it does, like Steve said, like, it's one of people's favorite store. I don't want to boast, but, like, it really is a special place. If you've never been to my shop, you must come. It's like walking into a movie set. And what we're creating, and we're doing events all the time, like, we're just trying to build a really vibrant community. And I put that ahead of where I'm gonna lay my head, you know? And I love that house. People that know, and they know. But that's how hard I'm fighting to stay alive as a business. I'm a single woman. This is my sole income, and I have a staff of 5. There are people counting on me. I don't want to close my doors. At the end of this, if I do, it will be under duress. I do want people to know that, like, construction needed to happen, but there was no way we could prepare for it. And we're doing everything we can. So if county can find ways to support that, however that is, it doesn't have to be checks. But in the future, even if they could have the mind to think towards how to support downtown businesses in recovery, that would be really appreciated. A pause is a good start.
No further questions from council? Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much.
Can I just get a motion to receive our 2 delegations? Councillor Howes, Mayor Bailey. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, adoption of the previous minutes. Can I get a mover for the June 16th? Councillor Miller, Councillor Bell. Questions on those? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to consent items. Consent items, we've got a couple of them here. 7.1, RPT 0277-26, the naming of the Burford King Street Parquet. Can I get a mover? Counselor Miller, Counselor Haley. Kathy, do you want to speak to it, or just, is there any questions? Counselor Chambers.
I'm just wondering if Kathy might give a proposed schedule as to when, now that we've got it, we're gonna have it named, when the project will commence and when will it be concluded?
Thank you for that question through you, Mr. Chair. The project kickoff meeting is actually this afternoon with the contractor, and we expect the construction to start in mid-August, and it should be completed by mid-November.
And just to follow up, does that include the parking lot as well?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that does not include the parking lot. That is a separate project. I'm not sure of the timeline for that section.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 7.12, RPT 0284-26, the insurance program renewal. Can I get a mover? Counselor Coleman, Counselor Bell. Questions? Counselor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Heather, I guess. Quick question on Haldimand County, a county that's actually geographically bigger than us, and I think has more population, and yet somehow has an insurance premium that's half of ours. Is there an obvious reason, Heather?
We're going to get you that answer.
Sorry, I addressed the question to the wrong person. I do apologise.
Through the chair to Councillor, I'm not sure what their insurance, why their premium is that amount.
Could I then ask that you let us know, because it's such a big gap between where we are and where they are. I do appreciate that our insurance premium has not risen much. That's very good. I like that. But I deal with people from Haldimand County fairly regularly through the Board of Health, and I just look and I think they look very much like we look. So what's the difference? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on that report? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 713, RPT 0202-26, St. George Fire Station Bunker Gear Edition. Can I get a mover? Councilor McAlpine, Mayor Bailey, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 714, RPT 0169-26, the Solid Waste Facilities Operation Fee. Mover? Councilor Coleman? Councilor Howes, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 715, RPT 0223-26, St. George Trunk Sewer Replacement, Phase 1. Mover, Mayor Bailey, seconder, Councilor McAlpine, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 716, RPT 0224-26, the award for the engineering services of Cockshut Road and Birch Road detailed design and Cockshut Road and County Road 18 conceptual and detailed design. Can I get a mover? Councilor Haley, Councilor Coleman, questions? Councilor Coleman.
Hey, Mr. Chair. Not a question, more as a comment. I'm glad to see this is moving forward. It is taking a long time to get it going, so thanks.
Any other questions, comments on the report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 717, the RPT 0283-26, the award and engineering services of Biggers Lane landfill expansion, Phase 2. Mover? Counselor Miller. Counselor Howes. Question? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 718, RPT-0279-26, RPCIP application for 225 Howell Road. Can I get a mover? Counselor McAlpine, Counselor Haley. Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. 7.19, RPT 0290-26, CIP application, CIP-2605 for 97 Grand River Street North. Can I get a mover? Counselor Howes, Counselor Kyle. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Consent items to be received. We have, looks as though we have 5 of them. Does anybody want any pulled? Counselor Coleman?
7.24, please.
Counselor Miller?
7.2.3.
Counselor Bell? Okay.
Pull them all.
Okay, so we're gonna go 721 and 722. Can I get a mover? Counselor Howes, Mayor Bailey, questions on 721, 722? All in favor? Opposed? Those two are carried. 723, Counselor Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I always enjoy reading these reports with lots of public comments on it. And 2 questions through you, Mr. Chair, maybe to Greg. When reading the comments, it quickly becomes apparent that when we're talking about noise bylaw, we're talking about 2 different categories. There's one for special events like fairs and music events versus everyday normal occurrences of noise. And I just want to ask Greg if that's how he sees it, and would the bylaw be written to accommodate, say, special events?
Greg?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that's correct. So we are looking at, a framework that will divide the 2 where we're going to have basically overall noise issues that are, predominant for everyday life. And then we'll probably have a separate process that we're looking for special events, likely through the exemption process, which will follow, some of the similar processes that we have right now. We are looking at, making some changes with that to respect to that.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, like I said, that became apparent reading the comments. Second question too, in reading the comments, it does kind of hit you. Like some people are, they're pushed to the limit, with noise. And I'm just wondering, one of them that pops into mind is the homeowner that is talking about a neighbor. I don't even think it was an immediate neighbor. A couple houses down that plays their TV and their music loud every single evening and weekend. And I'm just wondering, maybe in the bylaw, do you see a persistent nuisance provision? In other words, not a one-off noise, but something that's just, night after night or weekend after weekend. Do you see anything in the new bylaw such as that, like a persistent nuisance provision?
Through the chair, yeah, we are looking at some all-encompassing language that would be able to effectively deal with that type of situation. We have to keep in mind that, some people have some sensitivities that may not always meet the threshold of the bylaw, but it's certainly something that we would investigate. And we are looking to kind of button up some of the wording in the bylaw that would capture these types of nuisances that are not, specifically indicated in the bylaw.
Okay, and then the last comment, it's just a comment, but it was interesting to read like a lot of people were saying, I thought some pretty logical things, like they wanted it to be clear. They wanted it to be objective. slash fair and enforceable. So I do hope, Greg, sounds like you'll take him to heart, because there was a lot of great comments in there. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. 7.2.4, Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair,
Oh,
and,
so hold on, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Bell. Throw your mic on, certainly.
Yeah, thank you. I too read the survey with a lot of interest. I was pleased to see that the broad conclusion was that a balanced approach is preferred. Now, I think that's where we got to as council
Yep.
some time ago. I think balance is evidenced by more than 60% of people want to support amplified music, and more than 60% of people want decibel limits. So I think there's a nice balance in there. Where I found a little trouble was that the large majority of business-related respondents opposed prescriptive measures. And I think that will be a bit of a challenge for Greg to work his way around. I think the other two other things that popped out to me in that survey was, one was fireworks. And it's not that long ago since we talked about the fireworks bylaw. And I do see online that Brantford are again looking at their fireworks bylaw with the intent of, or perhaps the intent of, minimising or not even allowing fireworks in individual properties, but rather focusing it on municipal events or organised events by service clubs, which I think is where I would like to see it go. But we've been through that in this term of council, so I won't bring it up again. But I think the next term of council we may need to reflect, or may need to be reflected on. And the final point was on enforcement, and it was quite interesting that more than 50% of people felt like enforcement was not sufficient. And that's right in Greg's wheelhouse, of course, and I hope that he will come forward with something which tries to alleviate some of the concerns that a majority of people had about our ability to enforce whatever bylaw we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to comment on 7.2.3? Okay. Councillor Coleman, 7.2.4.
thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you, I find this a very interesting report, and it's been probably a little while overdue getting here. But I'm confused by the top of page 2 of the report. And it says, a request for pre-consultations received on February 16th, 2024. At that time, the request was noted to be incomplete due to a lack of payment. Payment was received on April 2nd, 2024. Go to the bottom of the page, October 30th, 2024, correspondence was sent to the agent reminding them that the application was incomplete and no payment had been received. So the report is contradicting itself on what is happening. And that's the same on the other page too. I've got it marked a couple times too. So I would just like some clarification from staff is when the payment get received, or was this a typo error at the top of page 2? Thank you.
Okay. I think Jeremy's going to give us that answer.
Yes, through the chair to the council member. So there's two processes that are going on here. First is pre-consultation. So pre-consultation has a fee, and then the complete application. So when we're referring to, there's the two different processes. Each time a fee is required, it's not complete till we receive that fee.
You answered my question.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then, oh, go ahead.
Again on that same report. I took the time to look again at the video of the presentation that the applicant on this particular file made to us a couple of months ago. And she made the comment that she was treated differently from other neighbours' severances. I didn't see that specifically mentioned in the report, Jeremy. Could you comment on that?
So through the chair to the member, in the report, we did note that we did look at other applications in the vicinity. Those were done a longer time ago, so they were under different planning processes and different regulations at the time. So we're now looking at the new provincial policy statement and our current official plan and the 2012 official plan, which not all of those fell through. So there was different regulations at the time that were applied, that were applicable at the time.
So different, but logically different, and therefore when we go through this application, we have a different set of rules that we follow.
Very much so, yes.
Okay. Councillor Haley?
Through you. I think that's the hard part for these neighbors, is they look across the road at all of these new houses that were built, and I think they came under different regulations or a different official plan. Is that correct?
Yes, the chair, yes, the different official plans and realizing that under the 2012, they were still permitted severances, under the new official plan, they would not be permitted a severance application. So things are changing over time with planning policies, which then changes what can happen.
Thank you. One more question. On page 6, third paragraph, it's noted that the potential of a new CPPS implements a revised process which will help with the processing applications more effectively. So had this application, I'm still trying to understand the CPPS, had this application been under the CPPS, how would it have been different? Or maybe you can't help me on that one.
So through the chair to Councillor Haley. So under the CPPS, we would start the pre-consultation and do a lot of work initially before they do the complete application. So we'd be doing a lot of work with them to combine processes and work more efficiently with a landowner. Right now, the way the processes work, everything's done independent. So consents are done sort of independent from the zonings. The overlap and consistency in working through things is not as good as it could be under the CPS, which will make that, combine that together to be more efficient with everybody.
Just as a follow-up then, because this is already in the midst of a long process, this will never come under the CPPS.
That is correct.
Any other questions on that one? Okay. Councillor Bell, you had a question on 725?
I do, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess this one definitely will go to Heather. Heather, on the table on the second page of the report, you list out the capital works that will be covered. How many of those line items would be ultimately paid for by development charges?
Heather?
Through the chair, I'd have to go back to the initial report, but I think probably about 5 or 6 have a good portion that have a component that are development charge repayment.
So of the 27 million, just ballpark, how much would be down to the property taxpayer?
Sorry, through the chair, I'll have to go and look that up. And actually, further in the report, we're not issuing a full 27 million.
Yeah. So a second and related question, the number on that table, you then go on to say we can't actually deal with that, we have to deal with a different number. And you talk about internal financing. Could you explain what internal financing translates to?
Through the chair, we do have like a reserve called the Financial Stability Reserve that was set up probably near amalgamation that has a balance in there. And we would look to do an internal kind of debt issuance from that funding and pay ourselves back.
Councillor Haley?
Thank you, through you. I had a similar question to what Councillor Bell just asked, but I wanted on page, on the first page of your report, the FCM, going to the, I just wanted to know on the last paragraph there for a loan, what would the interest rate be on that loan, or do you know?
Through the chair, no, we do not know at this time. That will come in September when we're actually in the round to issue the debentures. When asked previously about the FCM versus the IO rate, they were comparable. So I think they'll come in right around the same range, but it'll be interesting.
Okay. Any other questions on that report? Okay, seeing none. So we've got 7.2.3, 2.4, and 2.5. Can I get a mover for those three, please? Councillor Bell, Councillor Coleman. No further questions? All in favor? Opposed? Those are carried. Thank you. Okay, Section 8 staff reports, RPT-0268-26, Paris BIA Residential Parking Permit Pilot Project. Greg, I'm not sure if you want to speak to this, or can I get a mover to get it on the floor first? Mayor Bailey, Councillor Howes. Greg, I'm not sure if you want to speak to it or just answer questions.
I'm happy to answer questions. I think the report is pretty straightforward, Chair.
It is, yeah. Questions for Greg? Councillor McAlpine.
Do we have any idea the number of people that would be eligible for these permits in the downtown?
Great question, through the chair. I believe when we looked back, and I'm just going from memory here, I recall there was 80 some properties that may have been eligible as far as being zoned residential. Keeping in mind that, you know, a lot of these properties probably have their own parking. But that was the number that we came up with, and I think the whole part of this exercise was to get, you know, a better sense of what the demand is right now. And right now it's low, but we expect that to change in the coming years.
Okay. Counselor House?
Thank you. Through you to Greg. Greg, can you just speak a little bit more about the uptake or the lack of uptake in the previous version of this?
Certainly through the chair. So I think there's a couple of things that are, you know, compounding the issue with uptake. Number one was construction. We believe that it probably had something to do with the low uptick. Secondly, I think that the price may have been a little high. Although we did a market analysis, we thought that, you know, the price that we came up with, I think was $120 a month, was fair. But in relooking at that, and since, you know, that time, I believe February of 2025 is when we kind of were initially talking about formalizing this process. I think the economy has changed significantly, and we, you know, keep that in mind. And, you know, that's part of the reasoning for lowering the rates right now, is just to kind of assist some of the local residents to make these permits a little more affordable. That has been, you know, some of the feedback that we've received through social media channels and you know, meetings through the BIA.
Counselor House?
Quick follow-up, please, through you, Mr. Chair, to Greg. So can you tell, just for the benefit of people who are watching at home or watching this later, can you tell us how many spots right now are available to rent for downtown residents and how many are rented?
Yes, absolutely. Through the chair, as indicated in the report, there are 20 spots that are available right now. One is in municipal lot number 3, which is the Cenotaph lot, and the other one is in municipal lot number 11. So there's 10 spaces allocated in both spots. Just for clarification, municipal lot 11 is right across from Wincy Mills. It's the old OPP lot, or the old location of the OPP station. Currently, we have 6 permits that are spoken for, and we have 14 remaining. I know that there has been some interest recently from a couple of residents who are kind of watching this report here to see what happens, and you know, we expect that those numbers are going to grow as the program continues to evolve.
Okay. Counselor McAlpine?
I'm just curious, do we allow 24-hour parking then in lots 11 and those other rear lots? And that might be the reason why we don't have a lot of uptake on that, because they don't necessarily feel they need to.
Through the chair, that's absolutely right. You know, that's kind of been discussed through social media channels, is, you know, why pay for a permit when you have 24 hours? But obviously there are some residents that are interested in having a dedicated parking space that they can go to day in, day out without having to, you know, try and fight for a parking spot. So I do think there is, you know, a want there and a need for residents of the BIA and some of the BIA owners that are looking to rent some of their residential properties. But great point.
Do we have any idea the number of people that would be there on a regular basis using spots in that case?
Through the chair, right now, we have like 1 resident who is actually using it, and then we have 6 that are, or 5 that are, have been issued to an owner who is essentially keeping those spots available for when he sells his condo units.
Actually, what I was referring to is people that are using the lots on a regular basis, but not necessarily using the permit system that we've put into place. So what I'm thinking about is, say, an organization like the Arlington, I understand they use that as sort of an overflow for their business. And so that on a regular basis might not be the same people, but they are utilizing that on a regular basis. So just a comment more.
Any other questions, comments on that report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.2, RPT-021-26, bring your own alcoholic beverages, amendments to the Liquor License and Control Act. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Miller. Questions? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, Councillor Kyle? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you, this is actually the timing of this is really interesting because I just had a resident ask me about this specifically about 3 days before the report came out. So the question that I would have for staff is, so could you clarify that? So if someday that we were to go down this route, what constitutes a municipally designated cultural or community event? So, for example, if you have someone who has an independently operated agritourism business, where they're going to have an event, it's on their private property, would they ever qualify under this new legislation if we were to implement it at some point down the road?
Zach?
Yeah, through the chair to you, Councillor Kyle. I think, as I understand it, this only applies to public property. So if they're hosting an event on private property, I really can't comment. I'm not aware of a mechanism for private property in BYOB at this point in time, but so I really can't comment. I think it is giving municipalities the license to kind of come up with that definition of what is a cultural activity. But how it wouldn't apply to private property, if that answers the question.
No, that does. Thank you, Zach.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Miller?
Just a comment. It's a new thing that the province is doing, and I do like the approach in the report. It's just, let's see what other municipalities do and go from there. So, yeah, I like that approach.
Any other questions? Councillor Haley?
For whoever, I don't know who to ask this of, but for the community halls that you rent out, sometimes you'll get the request, we just want to bring our own alcohol. And so I wondered how this might relate to the community halls.
Zach?
Yeah, through the chair, it's a good question. I think, you know, with this, it's more geared towards how events operate within the county. And, you know, we're taking the lens, this would be open to kind of events that traditionally go through our special events policy. So if it's, you know, a private event happening in a hall, I don't think this really impacts it. They'd be limited to following our municipal alcohol policy.
Phil, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Haley. So, you know, if somebody wants to bring their own booze, there's a process to go through. And so I did that for like a family party, but you have to have somebody designated that can serve and has smart serve training within your family. If you did a family event, there's still insurance, there's still a whole process. It's staff can help the community through that process. It's not too difficult. I did it myself, and if I could do it, anybody can. But it's yeah, there is a process there, and you know, there's some savings there, especially if you have members of your family that are smart serve trained. You don't have to pay for a bartender, but you still have to specifically decide what you're going to provide. And family always complains about whatever you provide. So that's just my experience.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, so I would believe you'd need the smart serve, you'd need the insurance, and maybe the permit too?
That's correct. There's an AGCO permit as well. So the whole process is, we have a really defined process. So anybody who has any questions about that, my staff can walk them through it. It's pretty straightforward.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.3 RPT-0239-26 Arlington Meadows Park update. Mover, Councillor Howes, seconder, Councillor Bell. Questions to Kathy? Counselor Miller, then Counselor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hate reading reports like this, but I imagine staff hate writing reports like this, so. It's a big project, and to go 15% over, it can add up, but just to be clear, two questions, and one of them is, the hit to the ratepayer won't be the full amount listed in the report of 340, is that correct? We're saving money elsewhere?
Through you, Mr. Chair. 90% of that is covered through development charges, and 10% will come through the parkland dedication account, reserve account.
But are we saving money from Public Works in other areas of the county?
Yes, we can answer that through you, Mr. Chair. Through this process, we've been able to move about 3,200 cubic meters of soil from our Woodsley stockpile down to the park, which would result, depending on the situation at the time, in a savings of approximately $50,000 to $170,000 on their project. So it's been a good process to work cooperatively through this challenging project.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. And then the last question, and we gotta be careful here because some of this information might be kind of an in-camera stuff, but I wanted to ask, given the scope of the project, how is staff gonna do things differently so we can kind of try and avoid snafus like this? I mean, poop happens, it's just how you respond to it, but what can we do differently?
So through the chair, I think I'll answer this one. There's 4 different things that we've done or are working on. So the first thing is that we've now pre-qualified for park contractors, and there's 3 different qualifications, up to $100,000 project, from 100 to 250, and 250 plus projects. So when we were feeling some issues with this project, we decided, okay, going forward, we need to have a pre-qualification of our parks contractors, and it follows similar to what Public Works does. So we've got that in place now. It doesn't solve this one, but it's for future. The other thing that we're looking at is strengthening agreements going forward on the planning side, and looking at grading certification for park blocks. In the past, you know, a lot of the parks, when they're smaller, they're like a couple of lot size. The developer usually, you know, because they're grading for lots either side of it, you know, the grading in between's pretty much bang on. This was a bigger property, and there were sections 1 foot to 2 foot low. And because of our process, it didn't get picked up by planning. We received something from the developer that it was good, and then when we got out there, it wasn't, but we had already tendered the project. So Kathy's been working with operations staff. There's been some great cooperation to move material to the site. It gives an opportunity to the contractor to, you know, look for issues, and there was others as well that you know, we're still working on the project. But anyhow, the next item, so we talked about grading certification and strengthening agreements going forward. It doesn't help old agreements. We have a lot of those out there still. And then cooperation with operations to move soil to other county projects is a new thing for us, and I think it's a positive thing. And then also purchasing is working on a vendor performance module that we're hoping to have out in January of 2027, which will also improve tightening up the contract admin side. So those are the 4 things.
Thank you. Yeah, and if we're not learning from this, it's very expensive tuition, so thank you for the answers.
Okay, Counselor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to presenters. I think Councillor Miller asked one of the questions, which was, has one of the thoughts, which is we must learn from this because we don't want to repeat it. But having experienced myself the time between finishing a construction and getting a grading certificate, in my house, we're now 18 months in and we still don't have a grading certificate per se. It seems like grading is a perennial problem, and this one is sort of being the mother of all grading problems. How did we let such a big issue happen, where is there some internal process between development services, operations, community services that we need to patch up on?
Through the chair, in this particular case, the developer sent us an email saying the grading was per the plan to community services, bypass development services, so the development services staff didn't get triggered to go out. We missed the communication between each other, right? So, you know, everybody's been working on it since we found the problem, and we do have some assurances from the developer. He's going to be bringing materials, I think, next week. So that's been resolved since we wrote the report. So we're still working hard with the developer and with the contractor to keep things moving. It speaks to that, you know, going forward, we need some better teeth both on timelines and on what's provided by the developer. Otherwise, if they don't provide a grading certificate for a park, which they never have, then we would have to spend that money and then get into an iterative process with the developer until we actually start. The issue is we budget, you know, in the 10-year capital forecast, the community's looking for us to bring forward a park. And we're trying to get all of our ducks in a row, our tenders and everything else. So there's a lot of moving parts, but I think we can along with planning, come up with a better process or improve the process.
So of the $340,000 that this is costing us extra, how much of it is going to be, would be picked up or should be picked up by the developer who failed to put the grading in the right, in the right form, at the right time?
Yeah, so I think what, you know, at the end of the day, we think we're going to run about $340,000, and there's potentially $170,000 savings on the operations side of things. So, you know, we're into a 10% overrun. The developer is going to meet his obligations, is our understanding, to provide the topsoil and what's been missing from the fill. The problem is there's delays in the project, and we're still going to work through with our solicitor on what we do on that end of it with both the contractor and the developer.
So I'm still not quite sure whether the developer gets away free on this.
Through the chair, we're not through. Yeah, no, there's a lot to go yet, and I can tell you that.
So I'm going to interrupt for 1 second. Sorry to interrupt you here, but we're kind of on the verge.
Apologies,
of what could be in camera, not in camera. So I appreciate the conversation, but I think we should halt it. Okay. Councillor Chambers?
Just a question through you, and I don't know whether Phil can answer this or not, but sometimes we tend to treat development charges as an unlimited amount of money just sitting there ready to tap into to fund things. And the recommendation is that we take an additional $300,000 from the development charges. I'm just wondering, what impact does that have on the development charges that are sitting there in the bank? Is it a large impact? Is it negligible? Does it deplete it? Does it take half? What's the effect on that?
Okay, I think Heather's going to come up and comment on that.
I also want to speak to there are sometimes projects that don't come to fruition.
Yeah. Through the chair, any overage does get caught in the next update. So like it's a bit of a fluid kind of thing. The actual, like, we don't look as to what actually is in the bank. Like, we do have to be conscious of it so we're not overdrawing it. But this amount, we're good with this, covering this amount. So, and any if it pushes anything out of alignment, it'll get caught up in the next update.
Councillor Chambers?
There's a lot of trust in that process, and I trust the treasurer to keep her eyes and handle on development charges.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Oh, Councillor Bell?
Sorry, you cut me off earlier, quite rightly, because we were straying into territory we might not want to stray into. But I do think it's important that we see a resolution of this, and maybe it's confidential Friday file note that talks about how this is dealt with. But just following on from Councillor Chambers' comment, the development charges is not an endless piggy bank that we can keep drawing from. And if I was putting my stamp on, is this a reasonable development charge? In this case, I would say you're asking for something that actually should have been paid for by somebody else. So I think we challenge the integrity of the system if we don't follow through to make the developer pay for his failing in this particular case.
Duly noted. Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.4, Councillor Miller stepping away. RPT-0249-26, update on physician recruitment program. Can I get a mover? Councillor Bell, Councillor Coleman. Questions? Councillor Bell.
Not so much questions, if I may, a couple of comments. Thank you for the report. I think it's a while since we talked about this, and the problem has not got any easier. If you dig into the report, there are a couple of comments I'd like to make. We've had 2 physicians retire from the local family health organisation. They have found their own replacements, thank goodness, and I appreciate that they've done that. We did have success in finding 1 new physician who unfortunately decided to move her practice elsewhere. What the report doesn't say, and which is a little bit of sort of good news, is that her patients weren't with her. So the investment we made in supporting that physician has actually paid off. We still have 1,000 more people that have a doctor that they didn't have before. They now have to travel to Brantford for their consultation. But the underlying problem has not gone away. In the health hub, we have 3 spaces available for additional family physicians, and I think you calculated in the report we needed probably 4 or 5. So this is work that is important. I think I'm supportive of continuing the work. My suggestion is that we perhaps think we might work more closely with the Brantford, Norfolk, Ontario health team, because this is not a problem unique to Brant, and I think the more people we apply to the task, the more likely we'll get solutions. In fact, the last time there was funding given from the Ministry of Health, funding went jointly to a Norfolk family health team and Brantford family health team and our family health team, which resulted in more people being connected to the family health teams to get their service, even though they don't have directly a family doctor. So I think we need to start working more closely with the Ontario Health Team, and that I hope when your report comes back, Hayley, it will actually point to that. So thank you.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. Just, I've been reading these articles, and it is a problem clear across the countryside. And oddly enough, some municipalities, some cities are actually apparently hiring doctors as municipal employees, and they work in their health hubs, et cetera, as employees of the municipality. And there's advantages and disadvantages. I'm just wondering, has that ever been looked at? Is that a serious something that we could be looking at, or how does that work?
Through the chair, that is something that we can definitely explore. We're here today to seek direction from council on moving forward, exploring different opportunities, keeping our current program in place, but exploring how we can enhance it through that collaboration and through other opportunities to work with primary care providers. So that's something we'll keep a note of. Thank you.
Councillor Chambers, you good?
I just thinking out of the box, you know, the municipalities, cost sharing agreements, those kind of things, joint ventures, hiring. It seems unusual to when you first think about it, but maybe it's not that unusual. So.
Any other questions from committee? Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. Thank you for the report. Just a couple of quick questions. Do we have any sense of what the barriers might be for people not wanting to locate here?
Through the chair. Great question. I think in talking with our partners, both Primacare, the Ontario Health team locally, and Can-Am as well, there's been some common themes. There's a lot of interest, but then the conversion has been the most difficult part. Again, this has been a problem across the board provincially. It's a very competitive and constrained market that we're seeing. What we've heard from the Primacare team has been just generally the piece of the financial piece coming internationally as well, and how they may need to be supported in that regard. So we want to explore opportunities for greater support for physicians moving to the health team, as well as I think more marketing efforts and really creating a more fulsome picture of the county as a place to work in, be that updating our marketing materials, updating our recruitment materials with Can-Am as well, and looking at those opportunities for enhancement of the promotion of our benefits, both indirect, indirect.
Thank you for that. And one follow-up too, if I may, Mr. Chair. So as part of that, so obviously we're focusing on physicians, but are nurse practitioners also kind of included in that same effort, or is that separate?
Through the chair. Through this program, we're looking at physician recruitment specifically, but the Primacare team has been working really closely with the Brantford Norfolk Ontario Health team on the interprofessional physician and complements as well. So they've worked with the health team specifically on nurse practitioner recruitment and have gotten a fair bit of interest in that regard in terms of nurse practitioners working there. They also received, the health team received some financing specifically to fund interprofessional care teams. So that's being addressed as well through financial aspects, but also through the connection between the health team and the Primacare team.
Great, thank you.
Adam, you want to comment on that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a couple of points, and actually back to Councillor Bell's point, I did want to note, I don't think it was mentioned in the report, we're kind of in a transition with the file from myself to Haley and now to Jenna. But the mayor and I did meet with the Brantford Brant Norfolk Ontario Health team back in the early fall last year to explore what their plans are. The province does seem to have shifted to more of a primary care model and not a primary care physician model. So more of a full suite of practitioners, nurse practitioners leading, practices now. So trying to figure out where we fit into that shift. And I think with the Primacare family health team, it's been more of that traditional primary care physician based model. And that's where our focus has been, but I think getting more integrated with the province, while not trying to make sure that we don't get consumed as a part of the broader regional approach. We've been trying to balance what that looks like for the county, its residents, for the health hub, while also trying to be part of more of a regional solution at the same time. So, and then I think, Jenna's point about the financial incentives has been sort of consistent over the past couple of years. We've seen that. I think we've been trying to balance, how far we can go to the level of acceptability of taxpayer funding to recruit doctors versus what the market looks like for that. And it seems like maybe we may have to adjust if that's the approach we want to take. But I think there's some interesting ideas that Haley and Jenna have started to explore, and looking at a regional approach is still very somewhat new to us. So I think there's room for improvement, and we're going to work hard on that.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councilor Miller will rejoin us. 8.5 RPT-0240-26 2025 surplus. Can I get a mover? Mayor Bailey, Councillor Howes. Questions? Councillor Bell, then Councillor Haley.
Yeah, commentary more than questions, if I may.
Go ahead.
First of all, I think it looks healthy and it looks under control, which is very good news. On the table on page 330, a couple of interesting points there. The last 3 years, we've had a 4% increase in our weighted assessment growth, and that's just a measure of how this growth in our community is actually benefiting us, because that's another way of generating income for the county. But I think if you're looking at that table, you'll also say, well, our expenditures have increased 9% per year on average. And I think that needs a bit of explanation. So I'm going to do my best to explain it. And Heather, correct me when I'm wrong. The 4% weighted inflation, weighted assessment, is a measure of the fact that as we grow, we have to provide services to that growing community, whether it's residential or industrial. So 4% of that 9% probably is down to weighted assessment growth. There's inflation, which collectively over the last few years has probably averaged out at about 4%. That may seem high relative to what you hear in the news, but if we remember, a lot of our inflation comes through construction inflation, which we've all heard is potentially much, much higher than the average day-to-day inflation. And then we've added on a couple of specials. We've decided that we will create a reserve for our future contribution to the hospital fund. And that's adding to our expenditure. We're also having to pay more for our contribution to social services. It's kind of crept up on us, but 4 years ago we were paying $2 million. Now we're paying $5 million for essentially the same service. And we've also recognized that we have a catch-up job on our asset management. So we've stepped up what we put into our budget and what we spend on asset management. And collectively, that contributes about 10%. There is good news in there because that adds up to about 10%, but we're only actually increasing by 9%. There are efficiencies that our staff are bringing forward that are reducing that expenditure. And I want to compliment them for that. But it is a complicated story, which I think we need to tell as clearly as we possibly can. Did I get it right, Heather?
Through the chair, you did very well.
Well done. Okay, Councillor Haley, then Councillor Chambers.
Thank you. Through you, I feel like I need to spend some time with you to understand the financial, but I have two questions here. Just a moment here. Page 326, the 2025 OLT costs are unbudgeted. And my question is why? I have another question, but maybe I'll ask that first.
Through the chair, OLT are largely unknown, and it's a conscious effort that council has made to not budget for that kind of appeal judicial process, like that, what it's going to cost, and then just recognize it as an unbudgeted item.
Okay. Page 328, the Provincial Fences Act revenue, what is that?
Through the chair, that's the revenue from fines that are on, get this right, through the different, I think, highways or whatever. Some of the provincial that goes through the Provincial Offences Court that is the county share. So I can get you more details on that actual line detail.
Okay, and then I just have a request to spend some time with you, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Chambers. Okay, any other questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, section 9. Oh. Okay, we're gonna do the one that was moved from in camera to now. So, bear with me. Okay, 1 second here, sorry. Okay, so of the in-camera report that we brought out, so it is for RPT 0276 26 for council remuneration. So Heather, do you want to speak to that and then answer some questions?
Thank you. Through the chair, maybe for the benefit, since this report wasn't made publicly available ahead of the meeting, I'll just go through the key points in a little bit of detail if council would like.
Perfect.
Okay. So basically, what we've decided every term, we have to look at the council remuneration for the next term. For the past few terms, we've done that as a process where the sitting council would decide for the incoming council, just kind of gets away from the idea of people deciding their own salaries so much. So the bylaw 8622 was approved in the last term. Council remuneration is governed under the Municipal Act, but there's no standard formula. So as we go through this, you'll see everybody determines their own council salaries based on their own priorities, and there's no specific, this is how you have to do it. There's not even really any clear trend of people using a number to base their salaries on. Typically, we had presented this in camera, but absolutely the decision needs to be made in open session, so it's fine to have this discussion in open session at this point. The elected official base pay, so currently after we've done our annual inflations based on the non-union salary costs, the mayor is paid $107,000 basically, and members of council are basically paid $40,000. This is slightly, so we did a comparison of our comparator municipalities, and it does land slightly lower than the 50th percentile of what people are projecting for the next term. Where this gets complicated though is that everybody is currently doing the exact same reviews, so it's hard to know if, I will be doing this again in September, but it's hard to know if those numbers might change significantly between now and September, because everybody's just kind of in the same boat. Some places have done theirs specifically, but most haven't yet nailed down theirs. So 50th percentile was our target last term. It's what council said they wanted to try to stay at for that term. Just as a note, in our most recent staff salary market comparison, council did establish a 55th percentile target. So the estimated remuneration, if we were going to go through to any of those targets, the 50th percentile would take the mayor's salary to about $116,000 and the councilor's salary to just over $43,000. The 55th percentile would take the mayor's salary to $117,000 and the councilor's salary to $47,000. And the 60th percentile would take the mayor's salary to just over $119,000 and councilor's salary to $50,000. As a note, one thing that I did look at is Norfolk County has made their decision on their next one. They've decided to base the mayor's salary as a percentage of the MPP salary, the MPP base salary, sorry, that is. That would bring, if we did the same, that would bring our mayor's salary up to just under $123,000, and our councilor, Norfolk also did their councilor salary based on 50% of their mayor's salary, which would take our councilors up to just over $61,000. One thing that I did want to note is that our remuneration bylaws obviously had never contemplated the idea of strong mayor powers. We do already have a fair gap between the mayor and councilor salaries, so maybe it is a consideration, maybe it's already accounted for, but it does change the role of the mayor over what we had as a situation when we made our last decision. There's a number of other items that are part of the remuneration bylaw. Maybe do we maybe want to ask any questions about salary and then move on, or?
Any questions to this point? Councillor Haley, then Councillor Coleman.
Yes, through you, just a comment. It's too bad that Councillor Lucas Oakley isn't here, because I believe one reason that he's not running again is that it's harder for younger people who need to have a full-time job and be councillors. So I know in some other communities they have full-time, and I'm just putting it out there that that's one reason we're losing Councillor Oakley is partly so you have a lot of people who are retired who maybe can be councillors, but can't manage if they're younger because they need to earn more of a living. I'm just putting it out there. It's just a comment, a reflection on that. Thank you.
Sorry, through the chair. So I have talked to Councillor Oakley about this, and he has suggested that we look at London and Cambridge have also looked at another model that's tied more to median incomes in the community. And so that is something that I'll be looking at before I bring forward the final report.
Councillor Coleman.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, and more of a comment. It's kind of hard to compare municipalities like Norfolk or Haldimand because they have half the number of councillors that we do with more population. So it's a 50-50 deal, how you make it work.
Any other questions to this point?
Okay.
Heather?
So another few items that are part of our remuneration bylaw that I wanted to bring to council's attention. One is the annual salary adjustments. So for the past few terms, we have tied annual increases in councillor salary to the same as the non-union full-time staff, which we are recommending we continue. Most municipalities are now doing this kind of annual adjustment. Health and benefits, there is a wide range of health and benefits offered by different places. I've outlined on the chart who's offering what. At this point, the County of Brant does have health and dental benefits, and the county pays 100% of the premiums, but councillors are not part of the OMERS plan. Those are the key things at the county. We aren't recommending any changes, but certainly if councillors have any thoughts or feelings on that, they can forward them and I'll compile them for the next meeting. The next piece is the reimbursement for private automobile use. So all members of council are paid for their mileage to and from for council business. In addition, the mayor does receive $3,000 as a car allowance paid in installments each pay period. This again, completely over the board. Every place does this a little bit differently. All I'm recommending we keep the same policy, but I'm just recommending a few things to clean up the policy to very specifically state, which things are included in your mileage, which things aren't. And to recognize the idea that we have a number in the budget every year for each councillor's mileage. We recognize that that's just a budget. It's not a limit because every councillor has different mileage needs. So we just want to make that very clear in the remuneration bylaw that that is part of it. It's not like a hard limit. You only get that number because everybody has different travel requirements. Conference expenses. So currently members of council have a maximum of $3,250 and $6,000 for the mayor to attend conferences. We've done a lot of changes in how we do conferences over the past few terms. And now all registrations and hotel accommodations, they're all booked by staff and paid for on the county cards. And it's way different than in the years where councillors would put the expenses on their credit cards and then come to the county with expense forms. So my proposal, and council can take it as it will, is that instead of setting a hard limit and then expecting councillors to pay the county back if they go over that limit, which is kind of how it was done in years gone by, that we set a standard of each member of council is entitled to attend 2 conferences that the county would pay for fully. We would budget accordingly, but that budget number may go up or down a little bit depending on cost of registration and such, rather than have a hard number limit, and the mayor would be entitled to attend 3. Representation on municipal organizations, so we're not proposing any change. The bylaw currently provides that if any member of council is serving on either a national or provincial board, that they are entitled to an additional 1,800 in salary. General expenses, we did include this just before our last remuneration bylaw update. The mayor has $1,000 and each member of council has $500. And that is mostly to offset costs of your home office setup, any incidentals that you incur as part of your job. I'm sorry, I think there's a question.
Councillor Chambers?
No. Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt. I just wanted to note to the chairman that I do have some questions at the appropriate time.
Do you want them now, or do you want
Nope,
to continue?
that's fine. We can get, I only got a couple more
Okay,
sections.
thank you.
Computer hardware and equipment. So when we went through this last time, we did decide that we were going to bring the computer hardware equipment into the budget process, not be it part of the remuneration, which just means that we're looking at standardizing the equipment provided to each council member. We are proposing that this time, instead of giving everyone the option of either an iPad or a laptop, that we stick to one device for everybody, just for consistency. And also, if we ever try to go back to the vote counting equipment, it'll make it an awful lot easier to implement. We're recommending laptops. We kind of believe that's more the direction that most places are going, and I think iPads are not as prevalent as they used to be. And then attendance at public events. So this one's a bit of a change in what we're looking at. So right now, if members of council are attending an event on behalf of the county, generally we've been paying the cost of their admission and tickets and meals through our county budgets, through the public relations budget. So what I am proposing is that any member of council attending their cost would be paid for. If a table is purchased for the county, then based on the members of council or staff attending, it would be split between those budgets. And the biggest change would be that if a guest was attending with a council member, that would not be covered by the county. It's just a new one that we're believing brings us to a higher level of accountability. So that's an overview of the proposal and the analysis we've done to date.
Okay, thank you for that. So Councillor Chambers, now is the appropriate time.
Just a couple comments, and I agree with almost everything you said. With regard to going from a set dollar amount for conferences to a set number of conferences, that would work if you have a list of eligible conferences that people can go to. And there are many that can qualify. And the other thing is, with regard to OMERS, did you say that the councillors are not part of that? Is the mayor part of that now?
No, I don't believe any member of council is part of
Okay,
that now.
so what I'm just thinking off the top of my head, it may be something that, due to the strong mayor powers, the mayor is becoming more of an employee with all kinds of responsibilities. Perhaps that position could be eligible for the OMERS pensions.
Yep.
Councillor Howes, and then Councillor Miller, and then Councillor Haley.
Thank you, and thanks, Heather, for all the details that you presented and that were in the report. I wanted to chime in a little bit on some of the comments earlier, and as in the past, regarding salary recommendations for the next term of council and that type of thing. I think we'll probably end up somewhere in the middle, like we typically do. But as Councillor Coleman points out, some municipalities have one councillor per ward, and that completely changes both the workload and the compensation. It's not a direct fair comparative, I don't think. But I do want to echo a little bit what Councillor Haley said. So if we just look here in Ward 2, specifically last term and this term, there were good people on council who, for their own reasons, had to make choices to not continue being on council. They did not run again in the next elections. And it is difficult to do this and have a traditional full-time job. I'm kind of saying that as a general comment, but also as kind of a cautionary tale to people who are looking at being involved in this council in the future. It is really hard to do both. And I think it's going to be like, we're never going to turn these council positions into a full-time job. I don't see that happening anytime soon, but we do have to make sure that the people who are going to be able to fill these seats are compensated fairly. And I just think we have to have some serious conversations about that. My experience with this is that it's more time consuming today than it was 6 or 7 years ago, like by a significant amount. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
Okay. We're gonna go Councillor Miller, Councillor Haley, then Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question, one comment. The question is Committee of Adjustment, the remuneration you have it listed at $29.15 and 12 cents a year. Is that what they're getting now?
I believe they're also getting the adjustment, but we will be looking at the boards separately because, one, we're not sure what the status might be of that committee going forward. And also with the police board changing into the OPP detachment board, we're going to be looking probably sometime in September at a complete revamp of their remunerations.
Okay, yeah, that's where I was going. If we dramatically change what the Committee of Adjustment does, we should dramatically look at what the remuneration is.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, and then just a comment, and I mentioned this to Councillor House. Ever since I've been on council, we've always stayed just above the minimum wage. And some days, I think we all appreciate that you just can't pay us enough for this job, and other days it's not so bad. But at the end of the day, and I think Councillor Coleman hit it on the head, you can't look at remuneration in isolation from the number of councillors we have. They have to, I appreciate what you said, Councillor Haley and Councillor House, about, sometimes it's tough to attract good people, but it's always been a part-time job, and I think it will be for the foreseeable future. So just bear that in mind. I do support the 55%. I think we're kind of a middling for pay, and I think it's always gotten us through. So that's what I support, but we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Councillor Haley?
Through you, I have a few questions. If I go to the chart, looking at health benefits, just wanted to ask, what is AD&D?
Accidental death and dismemberment.
Yeah.
Accidental death and dismemberment.
Okay, so I'm looking across the different municipalities and I'm just wondering, if it's not provided, is there an option for a councillor or mayor to purchase, say, you've got out of country or life or if it's not provided, if there's basic dental health is provided, I'm just putting that forward. Could it be an option that a councillor or mayor could purchase that?
We would have to incorporate that into the remuneration bylaw as an option to purchase. Some municipalities do have it listed as a can be purchased option. Some municipalities, we probably just didn't have all the information from them as to what they did or didn't do. But if we are going to offer anything as like an additional thing councillors can purchase, then we will have to incorporate that into the remuneration bylaw.
Okay, thank you. I have two more questions, I believe. Page 5 of your report, under conference expenses, I find as a newbie, the conferences are great for letting me do a quick study and learn. And so I'm wondering if you had 3 conferences, but you're not using hotel, if you can economize, if there was a budget, if you could go to, say, a 3rd conference, but be within your conference budget, That's a request I would make. I just think they're great learning moments to be able to go to conference. If you could stay within budget and like, just not have the hotel bill. So just that's one question I'm putting forward. Another thing I wanted to ask you about computer hardware is the option, I wondered, I really like the touch screen and it's not provided, so I'm not asking for that, but it's great when you're looking at maps and trying to blow up things. And so I'm wondering, would you consider, would council consider that council can also qualify for the computer loan if we wanted to buy our own so that we could have those extra, like the blow up, the touch screen? Could we, right now we can't qualify for the computer loan, but could we put that as an option? And I think that's all my questions. Just one moment here.
With respect to the last one, in terms of computer hardware, we do for all staff and council at this point. We issue standardized equipment because we can control the networks, we control who's in and out. It's a cybersecurity thing as well. Is there an option for a model that will have a touchscreen? I don't know. I can ask IT to look into that. But certainly I think our preference from IT would be that council have a standardized model that, is easy to service, that staff, our IT staff know and use. And rather than have people purchase their own and try to tie into the county networks, all members of council deal with a great deal of confidential information and all that. So we do try to keep things on the county's VPNs and networks pretty tight so that, nothing is inadvertently hacked or gotten out.
So just as a follow-up then, is there any way, I just find that my eyes get pretty tired looking at so much document, and especially with the maps. So is there any way that it could ever meet security, be a standard computer, but that I pay for the extra touchscreen? That's just an option, or that people have that option, but that it meets security. I understand the whole security thing. I'm just wondering, because we look at an awful lot of the site plans and it just really helps us do our homework. So thank you.
Yeah, and there may be a model available. I don't know for sure, but we can look at that for the next term.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the report, Heather. It's very comprehensive. When we had our candidates evening back in the end of April, Marc Leferrier gave a presentation as an ex-councillor. He was asked, how much time should you assume you spend as a councillor? And he said 35 to 40 hours a week. I regret to say I do not spend 35 to 40 hours a week being a councillor, but I do spend about 2 days a week on average, and my weeks are never the same. But I guess if you polled around the horseshoe, you'd probably find there's a spread. But I think it's useful to have a sense of how much time councillors do spend. I don't think it's, sorry, let me step back a bit. The time we spend as councillors is often at very awkward times. We spend a lot of time in the evening. We spend a lot of time in mid-afternoon sessions. It's not convenient, as Councillor Howes mentioned, for people who have a full-time job. In fact, it's very, very difficult. If you look at the number of meetings that we each individually attended last year, there's a heck of a spread from 40 to 96. I think that was the spread. So each individual councillor does quite a bit, has quite a bit of a different profile. But I think you have to average all that out, Heather. You need to find some middle ground on this one. And I think it's appropriate to find an appropriate link between how much time a councillor spends and how much time a mayor spends, and use that as we go forward. I can't agree with the approach that Norfolk took. Why we should tie ourselves to what the MPP does, I'm lost on the logic of that one. But it is worth noting that both Brantford and Norfolk have finished their deliberations. So there are a couple of data points in your list, Heather, that are fixed. Brantford, I think, ended up with $45,000, more or less, for councillor salary. So I think, my take on it, I think I would expect to be reimbursed for 2/5 of the time that the mayor spends, so 40% of my time as opposed to 100% of the mayor's time. And I think it would be unreasonable to make the step that Norfolk did, which was a 50-something% salary increase for councillors. I just cannot conceive of that. I think the 55th percentile is the place to go. It's very transparent then, so anytime we move from there, we're moving as per the rest of staff. It's very transparent, very auditable. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I just got a couple myself here and listening to the conversation, and I think everybody is in the same mind here that there's got to be, you know, fairly compensated, because there is a lot of time. And Councillor Howes alluded to the fact that if we look over the last couple of terms, our packages have gotten much bigger than what they used to be. You know, it used to be if you had a 300-page package, that was big. Now that's the average. And I've often said that if you let's say hypothetically it takes you 3 hours to read your package, you can probably count that the meeting is going to be 3 hours. So you kind of base it on that. For those with a full-time job, like myself, is it difficult? Yes, it is, but you find a way to do it. You don't, you know, put your name in to run for something and then, you know, not be able to do what you're obligated to do because you were voted in by our municipality. There's ways to do it. Myself, when I do, you know, overtime at work and stuff like that, I take the time. So I'm able to take the time for my day meetings and stuff like that. If you want to do it, you'll find a way to do it. And the last thing, I guess, you know, I completely agree with the fact of I can't understand anything in me how Norfolk did what they did. That just doesn't make any sense to me at all. Because I've always stated, and I've stated it to many people and probably everybody in this room, if you are putting yourself in to run for council or run for mayor because of the money, you're in the wrong thing. That's the wrong state of mind. You're not in it for the money. You're in it for other reasons, and the other reasons are to serve the municipality. And I think we all do that. We all do that very well. And I can honestly say that my feelings anyway, looking around this room in the last couple of terms, I don't think there was anybody in it for the money, because it's not a lot of money when you break it down to the number of hours that we do. So I would agree too that, you know, I think we've always said we'll be in the 50-55% percentile, and I think that's probably where we'll end up here. But yeah, again, there's got to be fair compensation, because I mean, you look at last week, we had what? There was a 6-hour meeting, you know, so, and a lot of people don't understand that, the time commitment. And as Councillor Bell said, it's not always at night. There's day meetings, which, you know, people make adjustments for. So again, I think we'll end up where we should be, probably around that 50-55 percentile. And it's not about the money. Mayor Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a couple of things to say. I've been on the Police Services Board now for 15 years or 16 years or something like that. And when I got the call from Heather that I had been appointed to the Police Services Board the first time, she asked me for my banking information. I thought, oh no, another board that I've got to pay. You know, like some boards, most of the boards I sat on, I stepped off of 6 boards to become the mayor. We would have to pay $60 or $70 a year to be on a board. And I thought, because I didn't ask anything about the Police Services Board. And I was surprised that I got paid. Who knew? You know, but so there is an element to, there's people we want to run for council, that it isn't about the money. I know I've heard that we should be getting more. I certainly didn't feel I needed any more, because I got whatever I needed to support me. I didn't like the fact that council didn't make as much money. I wanted the councillors to make more money. And I mean, whatever I got paid, 106 or something, and whatever the cost of living is, I mean, I think the position should go up. But it's the things that support you in the county when you're the mayor at over $100,000. I've always thought it was enough, more than enough sometimes. And I do appreciate all the heavy lifting that council members do. Everyone at the table is qualified and interested in different things. The mayor has to sort of be interested in everything, but not the deep digging that some of these councillors do. They need to be paid more. It needs to tighten up to the mayor. I mean, there should always be a difference, I guess, because you've got an entire county voting for you instead of a ward. But I think council should get paid more than they do. And I think you can figure out the conferences and things like that. But I've never needed anything that wasn't given to me without any kind of now I haven't asked for anything I don't think that I didn't need. But I always felt supported, and it was not a dollar value. I didn't know that I was getting a car allowance. I knew what I got paid. I guess if I took the time to look through my pay stub, I would see that that's what it was. And I didn't know that, Ron's little Mustang was part of that. So, you learn things when you take positions like this, but you can't talk about the money. You can't, and you're going to get different kinds of mayors. You're going to get different kind of councillors. You're going to get people that slide by, get elected once and they're gone. And you're going to get people that stick around for a long time because they love it and they work hard and they should get paid. It's obvious to people that are watching all of us how hard we've worked, how hard we do work, how interested we are in different things, not just in our wards, but the whole county. So I don't know that anybody at the table needs to make $200,000 a year, but I do believe that the councillors work harder than people know that they do. And I mean, so much of what I do, because I'm busy, is social, and I would have done that anyway. I've done it my whole life. I come from a social place, not a political place, and I would go to those things even if you didn't pay for my ticket. And the fact that sometimes you pay for 2 tickets because I'm bringing somebody with me, that's just makes it a nicer event, that's all. But I mean, I would still go to that event and do my job as the mayor. So I think that I think the county has been very fair with me, and I certainly felt supported. But the councillors, I think, need to be looked at again because they're not getting enough.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Chambers.
I was just going to make a comment about the workload and that kind of stuff. The philosophy has been changing over the years. We're now talking about whether it's a full-time job or a job. It was always maybe so much more in the past looked at as not something you do as a job to make money. And as you say, that nobody does that. Money's not the big thing why you do it. But the philosophy always was you were compensated for the time that it took. Not you've got a job, there's your salary. And if you look at it in terms of compensation for what you do, I think it's pretty fair what we get. If I wanted a full-time job, I would apply for a job and I would know the salary. But if I'm doing council, I don't want to be in a position where it's costing me money, but I don't want to be in a position where I'm making money. I just want to be compensated fairly for what I do. And that has always been the philosophy in the past, how we set council wages. And that's how it was set way back when I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 terms ago now, that we've just added a certain percentage with the cost of inflation. So keep that in mind. If you want to change into a job salary situation, or if you want to continue as working within the community, compensation for what you do, and that's how I look at it. So I'm perfectly satisfied with the way things are now, as long as it keeps pace. And that was always the problem, that if you don't keep increasing, then at some point you have to have a big Norfolk County increase of 30% or whatever. So that's how I'm looking at it. And the other observation I make is, over the years, I am spending a lot more time around tables and looking at paper than doing what the mayor suggested, or just talked about, and that's meeting with people, talking with people, and that's part of the job too. And that doesn't cost anything, but it is part of the job. So unfortunately, we're tending to move away from that, I think, is my observation, moving away from interacting in the community and being connected with the community and having the council connected within the community to a job position where people go somewhere and work, and then, and I don't think that's good. But I think that's happening. And I don't know whether that's just how things are going. I can remember back in the day, in the Burford Township days, when somebody called up and their garbage was missed, the Reeve would go out and pick it up. Those things are gone. So, and maybe for good, maybe for bad. So just some observations. But I'm perfectly satisfied with the way things are now, and I would suggest that we keep things status quo as much as possible with the refinements, as Heather is suggesting, and make that recommendation to the next council.
Thank you. Councillor Coleman, then Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I pretty well agree with most things that Robert has said here, but things have changed so much in my years here, is that the meeting schedules the meetings are different than they were used to be. And there seemed to be a lot more, there was more committee meetings. Now we've got it more streamlined with everybody meeting at once. Committee of the whole time. It works a little better. If anything I have to complain about is, and Adam's heard me say this before, those meetings at 4 o'clock are the ass end of the day for me. Doesn't work. But if the meetings can be scheduled so people can get to them, it works. And I don't think there's any more workload now than there was 20 years ago. Maybe just a different way of doing it. So I used to get a lot more complaints than I do now because roads weren't hard surfaced. That cut it down. You'll find that out. That's immensely. So, and I know you guys get the complaints on parking and everything in town, but it's a different era now. People are complaining about other things, and you have to learn how to decipher it. But I agree with Robert. I think leave it at what or Heather's recommending or wherever on status quo and keep going. And I think it works. And hey, it's not a full-time job. We all know that. But you try to make it work, just like you said, John. So,
Councillor Bell?
Just following up on what Councillor Chambers said, I think my observation is this has become much more like being a non-executive director, because we are spending a lot of time looking at documents and actually giving an opinion and actually giving approvals to what is ever more complicated in terms of legislation. Even in my short time, and for Robert, it must be unbelievably different from 30 years ago. But in the last 8 years, apologies. The legislation just keeps piling in, and we have to understand so much more, and the paperwork just gets bigger and bigger. And we have to, if we want to do our jobs, we have to read it. We have to be able to say yes or no on behalf of the community. That's what we get elected for. If we just nod our heads and don't follow it through, then we're not doing our job. But it is more complicated, and I think Brian's right. You know, the complaints are probably different now than they were some time ago. But I think I do see it as a non-executive director role, and it has demands on you, and we have responsibilities that we have to face up to. Just for example, water quality is something that we are on the hook for individually. So when Andrea brings forward a report about water quality, I feel really obliged to read it and understand it and comment on it if there are comments to be made. And I think it is a role that has evolved very much in the last 8 years, probably many more times so in the last 50 years now, I'm giving you 50. But if we can resolve this, if we can tie it to a percentile of the market, if we can tie it to non-union staff upgrades, this conversation doesn't have to be held very often.
Councillor Haley.
Yes, I'm looking around the table, and I just feel that if we, and I'm just throwing it out, I don't know how to adjust the income or whatever, but I think there's people out there who would like to be at the table, and I think the table could be more representative, say, younger people who have families who maybe we have to adjust the time schedule, or there's daycare for them, but women, newcomers, I just feel that would the way we reimburse counselors? If we changed it at all, would we get a more representative demographic that it allows for younger people, people with young kids, newcomers? I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know how we do it, but a number of us do have pensions. A number of us don't need the income as much as others. And I do think that that means that some people won't try to sit at the table because they can't afford it. And they do want to help, they want to contribute. And I don't know how we adjust it so that we enable it to be more representative demographically.
Okay, so we've had some good discussion there. At the end of the day, we need to understand, and this is just for information today, but any direction that we want to give back to Heather and staff to bring back the final report. So I need does anybody want to recommend anything? Not recommend anything, but does anybody have any information they want to send back? Or, first of all, I'm going to get a mover to get it on the floor as information.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
Mayor Bailey, Councillor Coleman. Thank you. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My observation is that I think Heather has heard most of our comments, and let Heather come back in September with a report. And we could sit here and debate this for another half hour. And as a senior citizen or a pensioner, as I've been referred to, I got things to do too. So let's roll on.
Okay, so I think that's a fair statement. There's been good conversation. Is there anything else you want to get out of it, Heather?
No, just members don't have to do it through this avenue. If you have comments or anything you want me to look at or consider, please reach out to me directly.
So it's on the table to receive his information, seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, we're going to slip back to section 9 now, committee reports. Biggers Lane Liaison Committee Report, mover. Councillor Miller, Councillor Howes, questions? Councillor Miller?
I just want to speak to the solar panels, which I brought up at the meeting very quickly. The microfit and the fit contracts, the first ones were issued probably about 20 years ago, and they're 20-year contracts. So we will be seeing some of these solar panels showing up at the landfill. If a solar panel shows up at the landfill today, unfortunately, it is landfilled, which is, I don't think, a good thing. The older panels, they have, some have an ounce of silver in them or more, and some copper. They are not really opening up a lot of new silver and copper mines. They've got some other things in there that are of value. So if we're looking at a future with AI, a future of electrification, we're trying to decarbonize. That future requires silver, that future requires copper. And so it was direction to staff maybe to look at what we can do with these solar panels. There's not a great economically viable way of recycling them today. I think that will change in the future, but if they are landfilled, we've lost that forever. So I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that this will become a bigger issue as we go forward, and I'm just trying to get out in front of it.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 9.2, Brand Heritage, can I get a mover? Councillor Howes, Mayor Bailey, questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Communications, I see none. Other business, anybody have any other business? Councillor Miller?
One thing, and there's a Brant Connects meeting Wednesday, September 2nd, and I'm just letting everybody on council and members of senior staff know. And at that meeting, it'll probably be the last one, we will be having the executive director of SWIFT there, Barry Fields, really talented, smart individual. And he'll be talking about what SWIFT has done and maybe what SWIFT will be looking at in the future. So if you can make yourself available, I encourage you to come out and to that meeting or at least zoom in, and then I'll have the clerk also send out an invite as well, but would be worth going to.
Thank you for that. Seeing nothing else, so now we are going to, getting a motion to go in camera. Counselor Howes, Counselor Coleman, and we are going to go in camera so that the Administration and Operations Committee convene in camera to discuss S 239-239-2, proposed pending acquisition and disposition of land, RPT 0168-26, Biggers Lane landfill, land acquisition of adjacent land and part of Lot 14, Concession 2, Coxford Road, Brant and Biggers Lane Land Liaison Committee Minutes Reports. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, we are back in live session. Thank you very much. I do not see anything else on the agenda. Noting our next meeting is not until September, as August is off, September 15th. So we are going to go for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Miller, thank you.